Capital Exchange, and they partnered with the Center for Cross-Cultural Music and Dance Performance. It's also attracted external funding from the Radcliffe Trust, the George Balanchine Foundation in New York, the Australian Institute of Aboriginal and Islander Studies, and a Harvard University Fellowship. Finally, several CDR members have contributed to radio and television through BBC Online News, BBC Radios, and many others. Move on. Okay, question time. Do any of you have questions? Thank you. Sure.
What was the basic character there that maybe we could take from? Like, was the environment, like the feel when you went there with the students and the teachers, that would be different than here at Palm Beach Atlantic?
I would say it's definitely different. It's 10,000 students, so it's more than 3 times the size of our university. It's, I would say, more global research would be the most important thing to take away from, is the global aspect of it all. There were people from all faiths that came to university, so I would suggest that as students that take class at Palm Beach Atlantic University, and when they graduate, they are well prepared for a program in the master's program. Yes, Dr. Miller.
Dr. Klein, you said, or I gathered from the slide, that the BA degree is only a 3-year program, that you can complete that in 3 years.
Because they have 3 semesters, so
year.
they have, yes,
Okay.
they have a summer.
The other thing that was, because no, this is how I want to ask this. I'm assuming our BA in dance does not have the kind of research in it that goes on but it didn't look like to me their BA degree had much research in it either. It was mostly at the graduate level that research.
It is
came.
definitely more at the graduate level. And I think, again, from a comment from Sam Pardis is that Palm Beach Atlantic very much prepared her for the program at a higher level, and she was well prepared, but also at the same time it also opened her eyes.
I did notice that there was an emphasis at the BA level on critical thinking in dance. What kind of emphasis do we have in our what are the courses in our curriculum that have some kind of emphasis on critical thinking?
I think, at the Bachelor of Arts level, I think our critical thinking is more on a level of, like a fundamental level to prepare them for the upper levels. There are a lot of lab-based courses that Roehampton has that are for the critical component, but also there are lecture-based courses that prepare the student for that as well.
Do we have a specific course at PBA that emphasizes critical thinking more than any other course?
Sure. Well, the dance history, I don't know if we would say with the technique classes, but necessarily for the lecture-based courses, even the creative dance practices that we have promotes critical thinking, of course. Anybody else? All right, thank you so much. Please do.
Several of you joined us at odd times, and so if you would, as you're leaving, please make sure that you've either signed in or give me your name so I can add you to the attendance. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Is there anything I may like take back to your office or anything?
Sure, as soon, if you have time to do, what time do you have to go to class? Thank you. Oh, good, okay. If you wouldn't mind taking those back, putting them as soon as you.
Different rooms, which is,
1 p.m. and 3 p.m.
Mondays and Wednesdays. And she said she was at, Stark Road Park, and I think she said that was 5 sections left.
Okay. Do I give it to you? Yes, I can.
That into, the facility.
You don't want to hold the mic? Okay, we can go ahead and set that back up. Just, yeah, be careful with this being kind of moving. Every now and again it was hitting the mic stand. So I'm actually going to try to lock these down. And that way it should move a little less.
She said if she does it, come back all this semester, that the online exam is really easier than the on-ground exam she gives, so probably maybe the students will be.
I don't know. Do you know who sets up the PowerPoint?
So somebody from your staff at the classroom and student assistant learn how to do.
Man of the hour.
Yeah.
Look sharp, gentlemen.
Thank you.
35 too. A lot of confidence. You're really good at presentations.
Let's find out.
People are telling me that in formal settings and presentations, you're always rising to the occasion. So
Well, let's find out how true that is, shall we?
I'm going to sit over here in case I have to slip out for the 2 o'clock class.
Anything else you want me to grab for you?
I don't think so, I think if you want to take that little red book, that'd be great. Me too, I love that. That's my favorite.
So this is being recorded for online stream.
Okay.
And there's people watching.
Yes.
They can't hear the questions.
Okay. Sure.
It sounds like to me that we can facilitate.
You can hit the space bar. Once you start it, just hitting space will push it forward.
Okay.
So, space. There you go. Yeah, or you could use the arrow buttons.
Wait, excuse me for 1 sec. History. Technology. This is the wrong slide. Oh, excuse me. None. Wrong slide. Wrong PowerPoint.
It's the wrong PowerPoint.
Yes.
Is this what you sent to Marcus?
This morning, I sent it this morning.
This is what, Marcus. I don't know if we can get the right one. Do you have
Do you
your
want me to
computer
just?
with
Do you want
you?
me to just start?
Do you have your computer with you that it was made on? Or did you send it? Did you send it through your PBA email?
Yes.
Okay, we can get it through that.
Type it in faster.
Okay.
American. JR. At pba.edu.
Oh, that's right.
I love God. I love God.
Any capitals?
No. $2. Enter. Send flavor. Americas. Most recent one from Americas.
There we go.
That's it.
Do you want to do it on the web browser, or you want to wait for it to download?
It's showing on the screen, right?
Well, it's also downloading into the computer. It might be better just to wait for, so that there's nothing tricky with, because it's going through Google Chrome right now. Do you know how large the file was? 6 megabytes. We'll make sure you get your full allotment of time. Okay, you're good to go.
Consent. Hello? Sorry for the late start, guys. Oh, okay.
Hi everyone, welcome to our fifth annual Interdisciplinary Conference. It's my pleasure to introduce Jeremiah Clark. He's a pre-law major here, and he is presenting on unmanned drones and U.S. anti-terrorism policy since 9/11. Thank you.
Okay. Good afternoon, and thank you all for coming. As you know, thanks to the Lemieux Center for Public Policy, I have been granted the opportunity to conduct research on a topic of my own choosing, under the guidance of Dr. James Todd and Senator George Lemieux. This research involves a multidimensional analysis of U.S. drone policy. That being said, I will carry out my presentation in the following order. I'm going to talk a little bit about the history of the drone program so that you can understand what is a predator drone and how it all began. Then I'm going to move on to the statistics so that you can understand, at least in part, why this is such a controversial issue. After which, I'm going to talk about the technology so that you can understand, in a sense, how a drone program, how the drone strike is, in a practical sense, carried out. After which I'm going to talk about the ethics, which is the heart of my paper, and then I'm going to briefly mention what my future objectives are, because this project is not finished. It is due in May, so I have 1 more month to work on it. Don't you just love due dates? History of the drone program. Initially, drones were mainly used for surveillance purposes, and they weren't weaponized at this time. But then, there was some debate about whether or not to use drones as weaponized systems. But no one made any definitive movements until a man by the name of Osama bin Laden gave everyone a new perspective. You all remember what happened, don't you? September 11, 2001. The course of modern warfare, the trajectory was changed, and war was never the same. After which, shortly afterwards, the drone program was developed as the manifestation of a desire to better monitor the movements and actions of terrorists and their associated organizations, and to act accordingly. How is a target selected? Around September 17th, 2001, President Bush signed a still-secret directive authorizing the CIA to conduct covert operations without any further presidential approval. And this directive created a secret list of high-value targets. A signature strike, on the other hand, occurred, or this policy was established near the end of the Bush administration. The president of Pakistan was about to resign, so the CIA felt as though the Pakistani government shouldn't have a say in the strike approval process. So Michael Hayden, who was then director of the CIA, convinced President Bush to establish the signature strike policy. Basically, having your name on a list was no longer a necessary prerequisite for being targeted. You could now be targeted based on your suspicious activity, such as carrying explosives or operating inside an Al-Qaeda compound. This policy drastically increased the total amount of overall drone strikes per year.